Hello and welcome to Disrupting Schools webinar. I'm Derek Harwell from AAIE. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that any questions you may have can be asked in the Zoom window. It's the chat section of the Zoom window. The chat button can be found at the bottom of the Zoom webinar window. If you wouldn't mind trying to find that now, if you look down at the bottom of your window. If you find that now, please ask your questions in the chat as you have them, and then I will ask them at the end of the session to Dr. Magana. Leading today's webinar is Dr. Sonny Magana, who also works with AAIE and presented at the recent conference in New York. Dr. Magana will share today the T3 framework for innovation from his internationally acclaimed new book, Disruptive Classroom Technologies, a framework for innovation. We're really excited to have Dr. Magana with us today, and we hope you enjoy the webinar. Dr. Magana?
Thanks very much, Derek. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to global participants in this webinar, Disruptive Classroom Technologies. I have a lot of information to share with you, so I'm going to give you the highlights, knowing that there's a lot of detail that I just simply won't be able to cover, but I wanted to touch upon the most salient points as it relates to improving international education. Please indeed put your questions in the chat box so that Derek can share them with you. I'm going to be talking about a framework that I've developed called the T3 Framework for Innovation, and it's in my recent book, which Derek kindly mentioned, Disruptive Classroom Technologies. Here's how you can find me. I'm a simple teacher. I've been a biology teacher, maths teacher, an AP science teacher for 35 years, and I became interested in the impact of technologies on accelerating student achievement in 1984. And I've been studying the phenomena of technologies in classrooms since that time. I found some really interesting evidence that I want to share with you now, but let me give you an overview of the T3 framework for innovation. It's a framework that organizes the impact of technology into three distinct hierarchical levels, what I call domains of technology use. Translational is T1, Transformational, T2, and T3, Transcendent technology use. And this relates to the research evidence on the impact of the types of uses of technology in today's classroom. I've categorized those uses into these three domains, and they are hierarchical, but it's also a continuum, and I'll talk about that in a bit. Translational technologies represents the lowest value, whilst transcendent represents the highest value. Within each of those domains, translational, transformational, and transcendent, there are elements that are the subheadings. So for translational technology use, the subheadings or the elements are automation and consumption. In the transformational technology use domain, the two elements are production and contribution. And in the transcendent technology use domain, the two elements are inquiry design and social entrepreneurship. So I'd like to dive in there. And first, the question you may be asking is, why do we need a framework for innovation in international schools? To answer that question, we need a follow-up question. What is the purpose of education? What is the purpose of education? What are we trying to do with our international school systems? And I think an arguable purpose of education is to prepare students to master current learning so that they become mastery learners. They embrace a mastery learning mindset so they can master current learning while simultaneously building the aptitudes, skills, habits, and mindsets to masterfully address future learning problems. That's what makes education so noble, is that we have to prepare students for the now and well into the future to be able to solve future learning problems and do so in a way that is meaningful, but we have no idea what those learning problems might look like. If that is a purpose of education that you can agree to, that we are simultaneously building learning capacity in the now and future learning capacity, then let's continue. So what does the evidence tell us? What does the research say about technology and education? And it's not pretty. John Hattie is a foremost researcher on education technologies, and he has developed an effect size meter to determine, this is my friend Ronnie McDonald. Hi, I want to say shout out to Ronnie. Hello, good to see you. The effect size meter that Hattie has developed helps all educators identify influences on learning that have a positive impact or a negative impact. So you can look at this as an odometer. The average of all the influences that Hattie studied is 0.4. We can consider that the tipping point. Anything above that tipping point is desirable. Anything below that tipping point, not so much. Turns out Professor Hattie has done the most recent meta-analysis on the impact of technology on student learning. And he looked at over 10,000 studies addressing various aspects of computers in education and found that the impact is 0.34. And it hasn't changed in 50 years. That's downright dismal. It's well below the zone of desired effects. So have we created learning environments that are technologically rich, but innovatively poor? I think we have. And that's why I think we need to have a framework for innovation to address the purpose of education, which is to help students build current learning mastery and future learning mastery simultaneously. But we can be optimistic because there is a new body of evidence that I've been spearheading for the past 35 years that shows how we can unleash student passion and student purpose for learning by slightly changing how technology tools are wielded in the classroom. And so let's dive into the framework. The first domain is translational technology use, and that's the type of technology use that simply translates teaching and learning tasks from an analog to a digital modality. There are two elements, automation and consumption. And these represent the preponderance of the ways in which technologies are used in our classrooms. We use technology to automate tasks, to increase efficiencies, to reduce errors, save time, and consume content that used to be consumed in an analog fashion through films or video or sound or books or magazines or articles. Now that consumption process is taken in a digital realm. We're simply translating the mode. We're not making any substantive changes in the type of technology use. And that's where we have a very low impact of technology, because most technologies use in schools is translational in nature. Now, before we go to the transformational use of technology, this is my recent book, Disruptive Classroom Technologies. And it's important to note that the strategies that I'm about to share with you now in the transformational domain had an effect size of 1.6. That was observed by Robert Marzano and his team at Marzano Research. An effect size of 1.6 is extraordinarily large. It is equivalent to 3 or 4 additional years of academic achievement gain in a single year, perhaps more. So this is a tantamount to tripling or quadrupling of student current learning readiness. That's worth paying attention to. Because on that Hattie effect size meter, it isn't 0.34, which is the average impact of technology. These strategies and the observed impact of these strategies is literally off the scale. That's something that is extraordinary. Transformational technology use has two elements, production and contribution. Production, or transformation, is to truly transform one's appearance, shape, or substance. And I think transformational technologies has to substantively transform learners so they're no longer the same. They now have more consciousness, cognizance, or knowledge than they had prior to the use of technology. And in production, that element, that provides students multiple opportunities to embrace what I call a mastery orientation, where learners set their own mastery goals for current learning content, track and monitor their effort, their progress, their affect, how they feel about it, and produce knowledge artifacts that represent what they know, what they can do, and make their thinking and learning visible to themselves, their teachers, and their classmates. The second element in transformational technologies is contribution. And the strategies in contribution allow students to take those digital learning artifacts and use them to teach someone what they now know. That enables students to deepen their learning and consolidate their deep knowledge by transferring their knowledge, by applying their knowledge to teach someone what they now know. On the whole, that provides an opportunity for students and whole learning systems to generate collective efficacy, where everyone is learning in order to benefit everyone else's learning. Transformational technology use really helps build student mastery for current learning, With an effect size of 1.6, another way of saying the impact of that effect size is that it will take students less time to master content. That's remarkable. What are you going to do with that time? What are you going to do with the time that you save by increasing the efficiencies and increasing student learning productivity? And that's where I want to focus today on transcendent technologies. I should mention that there was a previous webinar in which I went into more detail on translational and transformational technologies, but today's webinar is going to be focused on getting to transcendence. Once we have students master current learning, and it takes less time for students to master the content knowledge in our curriculum, that gives us time and space in our instructional day to transcend the limits of an industrial model of education and use the current digital tool sets to help students go well above and beyond the normal range of expectations and the limitations for educational systems. And that's really what transcendent means, to go above and beyond. So let's go dive a little deeper. The first element in transcendent technologies I call inquiry design. And this is a process where students can explore their world in a way to understand significant problems that the world faces and solve those wicked problems that matter to them. It ignites students' passion and purpose for improving the world. See, a wicked problem, a wicked real-life problem, is a problem that's intractable, it's messy, it's ill-defined, and it's as yet unsolved. And while it's important to give students problems that are clear with a clear solution, if we only do that, if we only give kids problems with a one identifiable answer, then that might habituate students to thinking that all of life's problems are clearly identified, clearly defined, and have a single right answer. We all know the world doesn't work that way. The world is messy. Intractable problems exist, and it's important to have students wrestle with messy problems for which there are no existing solutions. So the first strategy in the inquiry design element is to have students use technology to investigate a wicked real-life problem that matters to them. So where do you begin? I suggest using the sustainable goals for development. The global goals, you can go to globalgoals.org, and this represents a domain of 17 wicked problems, 17 domains of wicked problems, I should say, from ending poverty, ending hunger, reducing gender inequalities, improving quality education, improving life below the water, action for climate change. These are 17 domains that world leaders decided in 2015 we need to really address these and resolve them by 2030 in order to maintain sustainable planet and maintain the health and welfare of the planet and its peoples. This is a great place to start, to have students investigate wicked problems that matter to them. But don't stop there. Then have kids use technologies to design an original line of inquiry and generate resolutions. What was known about that problem? Where has that problem been successfully addressed in other parts of the world? This gives international students a wonderful opportunity to engage in global networks of inquiry partners, experts, other teachers, other students who are interested in acting locally to solve that problem and having a collective global impact. In my book, I list the steps very sequentially for systems to help students engage in the inquiry design process by brainstorming those wicked problems that matter, coming to consensus, prioritizing them, and then writing a problem statement that helps focus their work and effort. So we're not just spending time and spinning our wheels, but have students focused on their output. And then students defend and communicate and iterate their unique knowledge contribution. These are some guiding reflection questions for students in that process of presenting their knowledge. What was the problem and why was it important? What did you hope would happen? What did happen? What were the strengths and weaknesses of the investigation? What would you do differently and what did you learn? Now, anyone who's done a master's thesis or a doctoral thesis will recognize the order of these questions. We often are told when you do a doctoral thesis that you're going to make a significant contribution to the understanding of a population, in this case educators. My question is, why do we wait so long? Learners can make a significant contribution and follow the same thesis process by identifying a wicked problem that matters to them, investigating it collaboratively, hypothesizing possible resolutions, and then working together to solve those wicked problems that matter. That helps students become more future ready. The second element in transcendent technologies I call social entrepreneurship. And we are now at a wonderfully important time for education, because students have the opportunity to wield digital tools, coding environments, app building environments, and other platforms as a means to address and resolve wicked problems that matter to them. Social entrepreneurship is a process, a sequence of generating value and social capital by solving these problems collaboratively. And the first step that I take students through, and leaders and educators through step by step, is to imagine and design new tools or platforms that are robust solutions to the wicked problems that matter to them. Then beta test them. Do it in an iterative fashion. Don't just do one project and think that you're done, but constantly refine your design and your thinking. Get feedback from stakeholders and continually work on tinkering so that your solution is more robust. And then think about scaling the implementation of your robust solution with a global network of digital inquirers and social entrepreneurs that are connected through video conferencing, social networking, and internet technologies. These are some guiding questions that help students in the process of social entrepreneurship. And that's what the T3 framework helps systems engage in collectively moving through and addressing each of these sequences in a way that's actionable, observable, and measurable. Now, these are not necessarily new ideas, but the process of getting all teachers moving forward towards transcendent technology is new. And the methods that I've shared in the book, Disruptive Classroom Technologies, and in the T3 framework help scaffold that process step by step. And that's what's been missing. That's why I think we need a framework for innovation. In 1994, I did a social entrepreneurship project, my first one as a teacher, with brand new web technologies. In my science classrooms, students were learning about the disruption of the greenhouse gases and global climate change. And we launched the first ever virtual field trip in 1994 using burgeoning web technologies. That project stayed with me for the rest of my life. And I realized if we give students the opportunity to address a problem that matters to them, they will. See, I think we've been asking kids the wrong question. We've been asking kids, what do you want to be when you grow up? And instead we should ask, what wicked problem matters to you? And what are you going to do to solve it? Malala Ulmer had a wicked problem, which was, still it is a wicked problem. It's an existential problem. Colony collapse disorder, where honeybees are dying in droves. And she launched a company called Me and the Bees, lemonade made from locally sourced honey. A portion of the proceeds go to honeybee awareness and developing backyard hives, urban honeybee hive development across the country, which is a fabulous way to address the wicked problem that matters to Malala. I was so moved by her example that I am now a very proud beekeeper, and I'm doing my part to stave off colony collapse disorder. Natalie Hampton was an 8th grade student who ate lunch by herself, and she was bullied as a 7th grader, and really was damaged by the loneliness and isolation that came from having to eat lunch by herself. So she wanted to end bullying and isolation in schools. That's a wicked problem that matters to her. And she created an app using app building tools called Sit With Us, where students can now connect with other students using social media and geolocation to find buddies to sit with during lunch, which is a beautiful way of expressing her desire to make the world a better place. See, that's what transcendent technology use does. It builds students' passion and purpose for improving their world by not just seeing education as a means, as an end to itself, but seeing their education as a means to an end, a means to making the world a better place, to improving their world. And I think it's arguable that transcendent technology use builds student mastery for future learning by embracing the scientific process of identifying problems, generating resolutions to those problems, testing them, developing technology resources that act as more robust solutions to those wicked problems that matter. So why do we need a framework for innovation? We've had frameworks for technology integration for 30 years, arguably, and yet the needle of impact has been stuck at 0.34. An arguable representation, arguable inference can be made that technology integration frameworks have not moved the needle forward. What we have developed, I believe, are learning environments that are digitally rich, but innovatively poor. We need a framework for innovation to help us achieve higher levels of pedagogy and express a new pedagogy, a new domain of pedagogies that are only possible in technology-rich learning environments. It's the research that matters. So in fact, John Hattie said evidence-based practices matter. I completely agree. Evidence-based practices matter. The evidence-based practices in the T3 framework have an effect size of 1.6, which will unleash students' mastery of current learning content, but that's not enough. The purpose of education is to provide students with opportunities to master current learning and future learning. It's the transcendent technology use that lets us go above and beyond the limitations and expectations for which the industrialized model of education was designed. And that helps students become more prepared for their future by inventing it and doing things that improve their world. Now, I'll stop there and turn it over to you. Derek, do we have any questions from the field?
At the moment, no, we don't have any questions. If anybody wants to ask a question, please do so in the chat section. Again, I want to thank Dr. Magana for being here today. And if you have anything else you want to mention in the next few minutes, Sonny, please feel free.
Yeah, I do. A lot of folks have been asking, okay, this is great. I want to implement the T3 framework. Where do I get started? And so I've developed a process for teachers to become micro-certified, get micro-credentialing and badging through some online courses that I'm developing through a company called Participate. And through those courses, teachers will learn the framework, the strategies of the framework, and how to implement them and evaluate the impact. And in doing so, there'll be 3 courses, a T1 innovation course, T2 and T3 innovation courses. By completing those courses, implementing a strategy, and evaluating the impact, teachers can get a badge for each level of innovation. But I'm not going to stop there. I've also developed a process for whole school systems to engage in what Hattie calls collective efficacy, where everyone is working together to improve their instructional capacity. And so I've developed a process where whole schools can have individual teachers collectively move to higher levels in the T3 framework, and also certify and celebrate schools achieving a certification level at the T1 level of innovation, T2 transformational, and T3 transcendent innovation levels. And it includes foundational learning, synchronous and asynchronous virtual learning, and then a final celebration and certification experience. And you can learn more about that at my website. You can see it below maganiaeducation.com, where I'm committed to solving a wicked problem that matters to me. And that wicked problem is the low impact technology use, which seems epidemic in learning systems across the world.
Great, thank you. And so that is available. That was a question that people did pop up the moment you started talking about it. How do you gain access to these courses? If they go to maganiaeducation.com, there's a link there.
There will be a link there. Look for that, sign up, and that will be available in early summer.
Great, early summer. Okay, great. We do have another question. Which digital platforms best support customized curriculum for project-based learning? I think this is in your opinion, what it is you may have used in the past that helps students.
The digital platform, and so I'm assuming that person means like a learning management system. And I would say if that's what you're asking about, learning management systems or curriculum platforms like Canvas or there's really quite a number of them. They all do very similar things. Google Schools, Google Classroom does very similar things to Canvas, and there's another one whose name escapes me at the moment. But you got to remember that curriculum delivery systems only work at the translational level. They're only providing curriculum digitally that for students to consume. I don't have any opinion of any one that's better than another, but just remember that that type of technology use allows students to consume knowledge content digitally. That has very, very low level of impact. A better thing to do is to have systems where students can produce knowledge artifacts and produce representations of what they think, how they think, and what they can do. And again, there are a number of tools, the Microsoft suite of tools, the Google suite of tools, Cisco has a suite of tools. There's just so many open-ended, freely available production tools that students can use. I list a number of them in the book, but again, if I were to list all of the tools that are available and then publish a book, the book would be obsolete by the time it was published. Rather than listing tools themselves, I've attempted to create principled categories of use so that as a new tool emerges, you can determine, okay, can this be used for translational technologies and transformational technologies? Can I use this suite of tools or this platform to have students engage in production, contribution, inquiry design, social entrepreneurship? It's the principled use of technologies that matters more than the technologies themselves. I know it's a roundabout way of answering your question. One is about as good as another. The value comes not from the tool itself, but from how it's used and by whom. I hope that answered your question, but we can always take this conversation online or offline if you'd like for that call.
Great. Thanks very much. We also have another one, and it has to do with language classes. I think this was asked even before the webinar. How can I apply this in a language class? In another way, does it really matter to apply it in a language class?
Yeah, oh, absolutely it does. See, if you think about learning in any content in the three distinct stages that John Hattie has developed in his learning model, there's surface learning, deeper learning, and knowledge transfer. Often, teachers skip the knowledge transfer part to the detriment of mastery. In a language class, not only are students learning vocabulary and syntax and grammar, they have to apply it in a meaningful way. Applying their understanding of culture and language and customs to solve a problem that matters to them, either in the country that they're studying or in their local country, but applying it in the target language, understanding problems in the target language allows students to apply their content knowledge, which in this case would be language acquisition, in a context that's different from that context in which that language was taught. That's knowledge transfer, and it absolutely applies in all subject areas, not just science and math and social studies and the content areas that are generally tested through PISA and other examinations. The process of knowledge transfer and using technology to produce and contribute knowledge and then engage in inquiry design is effective in all content areas.
Great. We have one more question, which is, for elementary students, is solving problems that already have a solution. Is solving problems that already have a solution, but the young students are unaware of the solution, so it's novel to them. Could this be a way to build capacity for young students to mature into solving real-life wicked problems as they mature? And then my own personal thing on that is, what would happen if their solution was different?
Yeah, I would agree. There may be some known solutions to problems, but they may not be applied locally, so it may not be relevant in the context of the learner's world. I don't know, but I can tell you that I'm working with some elementary schools at the moment who are working to resolve some wicked problems that matter to them that include waste reduction, recycling, and reuse. Now, there are solutions to those problems, but to the kids, they don't know what they are. So I really appreciate the question and the insight that underpins your question, because if a child doesn't know a solution exists, it absolutely is a novel experience for them. And applying a solution that may have worked somewhere else into their local context is a powerful way that kids can act locally and have a global impact. There was a group of students in the American International School in Lagos, Nigeria. Big shout out to American International School Lagos, who have moved squarely into the transformational domain of technology through the certification process. Their students are working on a wicked problem, which is the preponderance of plastics in our oceans. They want to raise awareness and develop solutions to remove the plastics that exist in huge islands of refuse in the Pacific Ocean. They're really passionate about it. And there are no known extant solutions for that particular problem. We're working on it. And that's the kind of passion that will carry through with a child for the rest of his or her life. Once a child's passion pilot light is lit, it'll never go out. And it'll benefit the entirety of the planet to feed that passion and to give students opportunities to become leaders for action, leaders for positive action in the world, and make a difference and apply their learning to improve their world. So thank you very much for the question. This is absolutely within the realm of elementary school students. I appreciate the insight that you shared.
Great. I really appreciate it as well. Our half hour is ending now. So thank you again, Dr. Magana. It's great to be able to have a second session. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. There is another webinar recording on the AAIE YouTube channel. AAIE Global is our YouTube channel. If you want to go back and see Dr. Magana's first webinar with us, that was kind of an overview of all of the framework. And this one was more to focus on T2 and T3. So we really appreciate the second opportunity to have this with Dr. Magana. So thank you again.
Thank you, Derek. It's a pleasure. Thank you, everyone. Look forward to hearing from you. Just find me on Twitter at Sonny Magana or check out maganaeducation.com. And I look forward to seeing you at AAIE in 2019.
All right. Thank you.
Cheers.